A shy hotel maid walked into the wrong room and saw something she shouldn't have, a dangerous mafia boss with secrets to hide. He could have made her disappear. Instead, he kept showing up to save her life. And she couldn't figure out why a man like him wouldn't just let her go. The laminated cleaning schedule trembled in Lena Carter's hands as she stepped off the 19th floor elevator. Suite 1908. Her first solo assignment in 3 weeks of working at the Grandeur Metropolitan Hotel, and of course it had to be in the penthouse section where celebrities and CEOs stayed. Where people tipped in hundreds, not tens. Where mistakes got you fired. She adjusted her blonde ponytail and smoothed down her gray uniform, the fabric still stiff and new. The hallway stretched before her like a luxury tunnel, cream walls, golden sconces, carpets so plush her footsteps made no sound. Suite 1908 loomed at the end. Knock twice. Wait 30 seconds. Announce yourself. Enter only if no response. Lena repeated the training mantra in her head. Her knuckles rapped against the mahogany door. Housekeeping, she called out, her voice barely above a whisper. Silence. She waited, counting in her head. 28, 29, 30. The master key card slid through the reader with a soft beep. Green light. She pushed the door open. The suite was massive, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Chicago, leather furniture that probably cost more than her car, and abstract art that looked like someone had sneezed paint onto canvas. But what caught her attention was the sound of running water and the steam billowing from the bathroom doorway. They said the room was empty. Checkout was 11 a.m. It's almost noon. Lena hesitated, her cleaning cart half in the doorway. She should leave. Come back later. But Mrs. Chun, the head housekeeper, had been clear. The VIP suites must be ready by 12:30. No exceptions. She had 15 minutes. Just be quick, she whispered to herself. Towels and trash. In and out. She hummed nervously, an old habit from childhood, as she gathered fresh white towels from her cart. The bathroom was on the far side of the suite. She could replenish the living area, maybe the bedroom, and slip out before whoever was showering even knew she'd been there. The marble coffee table got a quick dust. She replaced the ice bucket. Her hands moved on autopilot, muscle memory from countless training sessions. She was reaching for the bedroom when a voice cut through the air like a knife. Who the hell told you to come in here? Lena froze. The bathroom door stood wide open now, and through the dissipating steam, a man emerged. He was tall, over 6 feet, with dark, wet hair slicked back from his face. Water dripped down his bare chest, tracing the lines of muscle and old scars. So many scars. A jagged one ran from his collarbone to his ribs. Another curved around his shoulder, like someone had tried to carve him open. But what made Lena's blood turn to ice was the black pistol resting on the marble sink counter, just inches from his hand. I'm sorry, sir. I was told the room was, her voice cracked. His eyes were dark gray, cold as winter steel, and they pinned her in place. He took a step forward, water still streaming from his shoulders, a white towel barely wrapped around his waist. You didn't answer my question. His voice was low, controlled, but there was danger underneath, like a predator deciding whether to pounce. Who sent you? And no one sent me. I'm housekeeping. The system said checkout was. Get out. The words were quiet but absolute. Lena's training evaporated. Her cart forgotten, she turned and ran, her shoulder clipping the doorframe. Behind her, she heard something clatter. Her name tag, she realized with horror. It had torn from her uniform. She didn't stop running until she reached the service stairwell, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst. Her hands shook as she gripped the cold metal railing. A gun. He had a gun just sitting there. And those scars. What kind of guest kept a weapon out in the open like that? Suite 1908 fell silent again. Adrian Moretti stood motionless, staring at the spot where the girl had been. In his hand, he held a small plastic name tag, Lena Carter, housekeeping. His jaw tightened. 3 years. 3 years of being dead to the world, of wearing new faces and fake names, of staying invisible. And some terrified maid had just walked in and seen him. Seen the scars that newspapers had published. Seen the face that had been on every FBI wanted poster in 2022. He dressed quickly, black pants, black shirt, and grabbed his phone, dialing as he moved. Vico, we have a problem. What kind of problem? His lieutenant's gravelly voice crackled through the speaker. Someone saw me. A hotel employee. I'll handle it. No, Adrian's voice was sharp. He walked to the suite's control panel and pulled up the security interface, a little modification he'd made when he checked in under the name David Brennan. His fingers flew across the screen, rewinding the hallway footage. There she was. Blonde ponytail, nervous energy, knocking exactly twice before entering. She looked young, mid-20s at most. And when she ran, she hadn't gone to security or a manager. She'd just run. Boss. Vico pressed. Adrian watched the footage again, studying the girl's face. Fear, yes, but not recognition. She'd seen a dangerous man with a gun. She hadn't seen Adrian Moretti, ghost of Chicago's underworld. Not yet. Track her, he said finally. I want to know where she lives, who she talks to, and when her next shift is. But nobody touches her until I give the word. Understand? You're making a mistake. It's my mistake to make. He ended the call and looked down at the name tag in his palm. Lena Carter. The smart move would be to disappear tonight. Burn this identity and move to another city. But something made him pause. Maybe it was the way she'd looked at his scars, not with disgust, but with something almost like sadness. Or maybe he was just tired of running. Either way, the girl had walked into the wrong room at the wrong time. And now both their fates were entangled. He pocketed the name tag and pulled out his laptop, already composing an encrypted message to his contact in hotel management. By tomorrow morning, he'd know everything about Lena Carter. The question was what he'd do with that information. Outside the window, Chicago stretched endlessly beneath a gray November sky, indifferent to the collision that had just occurred between two lives that should never have crossed. Lena's shift ended at 8 p.m., 2 hours later than scheduled. Mrs. Chun had reassigned her to the lower floors after the incident, punishment disguised as mercy. No explanation asked for, none given. Just a knowing look that said you screwed up. The November wind bit through her thin jacket as she hurried toward the Red Line station. Chicago's downtown glittered with lights, but the crowds were thinning. Late enough to be dangerous, early enough that the trains were still running. She should have called her roommate Sarah for a ride. But Sarah was working a double at the diner, and Lena's phone was at 6% battery. The train was faster anyway. Just get home. Lock the door. Forget today ever happened. The station stairs descended into yellow fluorescent lighting and the smell of oil and metal. Lena swiped her transit card and pushed through the turnstile, her footsteps echoing on the concrete platform. A handful of people waited, a woman in scrubs, a teenager with headphones, an old man reading a newspaper, and 2 men in dark suits standing by the far pillar. Lena's stomach dropped. They were too well dressed for the subway, too clean, and they were staring at her reflection in the window across the tracks, not looking directly, but watching every move she made. You're being paranoid. They're just commuters. But her hands were shaking again. The train arrived with a screech of metal on metal. Doors hissed open. Lena stepped inside the half-empty car, choosing a seat near the middle doors, easy exit if needed. The suited men boarded 2, 3 cars down. Coincidence. Had to be. The train lurched forward, plunging into the tunnel. Lena watched their reflections in the dark window as the city disappeared. They weren't moving, just standing, watching. One of them lifted a phone to his ear. Her heart hammered. This is crazy. You're making this up. Nobody's following you. But her instinct screamed otherwise. At Monroe Station, she made her decision. The doors opened and Lena bolted, squeezing through just as they began to close. Behind her, she heard the suited men curse, saw them force the doors back open. They were following her. Lena ran up the stairs, taking them two at a time. The Monroe platform was busier, tourists, late workers, street performers. She wove through the crowd, her breath coming in sharp gasps. Behind her, footsteps pounded. Miss, wait. She didn't wait. There, the blue line transfer tunnel. She ducked into it, the crowd swallowing her. Keep moving. Don't look back. Find people. Find light. The tunnel stretched endlessly, white tile walls reflecting the overhead lights. Her sneakers squeaked on the polished floor. Behind her, the footsteps were getting closer. We just want to talk. Liars. Lena burst onto the blue line platform. A train was leaving, doors already closed. No. No. The next one wouldn't come for 8 minutes. She spun around, looking for an exit, and nearly screamed. The two men were at the tunnel entrance, blocking her escape route. They moved like professionals, calm, coordinated, not running anymore because they didn't need to. They had her trapped. Easy now, the taller one said, his hand inside his jacket. Nobody needs to get hurt. Just come with us quietly. Lena backed toward the edge of the platform, her mind racing. Jump onto the tracks? Insane. Scream? Would anyone help? I don't know anything, she said, her voice cracking. I didn't see anything. I swear. That's for the boss to decide. They were 10 feet away. Then 5. A black-gloved hand shot out from her left and grabbed her wrist, yanking her backward into the crowd. Lena gasped, trying to pull away, but the grip was iron-strong. Don't scream, a low voice said in her ear. And don't run. She looked up into gray eyes. The man from the hotel. He was dressed differently now. Dark jeans, leather jacket, a baseball cap pulled low, but there was no mistaking that face. The sharp jawline, the cold intensity. You, she breathed. The two suited men had stopped, confusion flickering across their faces. Then recognition. Then fear. Mr. Moretti, the tall one said carefully. We were just following orders? Adrian's voice was quiet, almost casual. But there was steel underneath. Whose orders? Vico said. I gave Vico specific instructions about this girl. Adrian's hand tightened slightly on Lena's wrist, keeping her close. Did those instructions include cornering her in a subway? The men exchanged glances. He said she was a risk. She's under my protection now. Go back and tell Vico we'll talk tomorrow. If either of you follows us, Adrian let the threat hang unfinished. They hesitated for only a second before retreating into the tunnel. Lena stood frozen, her pulse thundering in her ears. The platform crowd moved around them like water around stones, oblivious to what had just happened. You shouldn't run alone at night, Adrian said, releasing her wrist but staying close. Chicago's dangerous. Who are you? The question came out as a whisper. His eyes met hers, and for a moment, something flickered there. Regret, maybe, or calculation. You already know who I am. The man from this morning. With the gun. Yes. Why were they chasing me? Because you saw something you shouldn't have, he glanced over his shoulder, checking the tunnel. And because my people think you're a liability. I won't tell anyone. I swear. I don't even know what I saw. You saw me, he said it simply, like that explained everything. And in my world, that's enough. A train was approaching, wind rushing through the tunnel. Adrian guided her toward the stairs, leading to the street instead. Where are we going? Lena asked, her fear warring with a strange sense that she was safer with this dangerous man than without him. Somewhere public. Somewhere they won't try anything stupid. At the top of the stairs, the cold night air hit them. Adrian scanned the street. Cabs, pedestrians, a hot dog vendor. Normal. Safe. He looked at her one more time, something unreadable in his expression. Stay smart. Stay visible. Don't go anywhere alone for a while. Wait. Lena reached for him, but he was already stepping back into the crowd. What's your name? He paused, and for just a second, she saw the man beneath the danger. Adrian, he said quietly. Then he vanished into the Chicago night, leaving Lena standing on the street corner, her heart still racing and 100 questions burning in her mind. Above her, the city lights flickered like distant stars. Lena didn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Adrian's face, those cold gray eyes, the scars, the way he'd appeared from nowhere like some dark guardian angel. She'd Googled his name at 3 a.m. on her cracked phone screen. Adrian Moretti, suspected crime boss. Presumed dead in warehouse explosion, 2022. 3 years ago. And yet he'd been very much alive in that subway station. By morning, she'd convinced herself to quit. Pack up, leave Chicago. Maybe go back to Iowa, where the most dangerous thing was her mother's passive-aggressive comments about her life choices. But when she arrived at the Granger Metropolitan at 6 a.m., Mrs. Chun handed her a new assignment sheet without a word. Basement level. Laundry and storage rooms. As far from the penthouse suites as possible. Lena took it as a sign. Keep your head down. Finish the week. Then disappear. The basement was a different world. Concrete floors, buzzing fluorescent lights, the constant hum of industrial washers. Lena loaded linens into carts, the repetitive work almost meditative, almost enough to forget. Until she heard the voices. She was in the storage corridor, retrieving extra pillows from the supply room, when two men's voices drifted from around the corner. Near the service elevator. They were arguing, trying to keep quiet but failing.
Can't keep doing this.
The boss is losing his edge. Lena froze, her hand on a pillowcase. He's been soft ever since he came back. You saw what happened with the Rossi deal. 2 years ago, he would have handled it without blinking. Yeah, well, 2 years ago, he wasn't playing dead in Argentina. The voices were rough, urban, Chicago accents mixed with something harder. Lena recognized that tone. The same cold professionalism the suited men in the subway had. These were Adrian's people. The girl's the final straw, the first voice continued. She saw too much. He should have eliminated the problem immediately. Instead, he's what, protecting her? He's hesitating again, Marco. Vico thinks it's more than hesitation. A pause. Heavy. Dangerous. What do you mean? He thinks the boss is compromised. That he's lost the instinct. That maybe it's time for new leadership. Lena's heart hammered. She pressed herself against the storage room wall, barely breathing. She should leave. Should run. But her feet wouldn't move. You're talking about a coup, the second man, Marco, sounded uncertain. That's suicide. You know what he's capable of. Was capable of. 3 years changes a man. Besides, we wouldn't be alone. Half the organization thinks the same thing. Moretti's time is done. He's a ghost pretending to be alive. And Vico wants to take over? Vico deserves it. He held things together while the boss played dead. He made the deals, took the risks. And now Moretti comes back and expects everything to fall in line? Please. Footsteps approached. Lena's pulse spiked. She grabbed a stack of pillows, trying to look busy, praying they wouldn't turn down her corridor. When? Marco asked.
Soon.
There's a meeting tomorrow night. Vico's calling all the lieutenants to the penthouse. Says it's to discuss territory. But after that meeting, the voice dropped lower. There won't be any more hesitation. You're sure about this? I'm sure Moretti's too distracted by that blonde maid to see what's coming. And that's exactly how we want it. Their footsteps faded toward the service elevator. The mechanical ding echoed through the basement, then silence. Lena stood trembling, pillows clutched to her chest. Her mind raced. They're going to kill him. Tomorrow night. His own people. Why did she care? Adrian Moretti was a criminal. A murderer, probably. The smart thing was to forget she'd heard anything. Go about her day. Let dangerous men handle their dangerous business. But she couldn't forget the way he'd looked at her in the subway. The way he'd protected her instead of eliminating the problem she represented. He could have killed her in that hotel room. Could have let those men take her. He hadn't. You saw something you shouldn't have. Yeah, she had. And now she'd seen even more. Lena finished her shift on autopilot, her mind replaying the conversation. Vico. A meeting tomorrow night. The penthouse, probably Suite 1908. They were going to ambush him in his own space. By lunch break, she'd made her decision. The stupid, reckless, absolutely insane decision. She had to warn him. But how? She didn't have his number. Didn't know where he lived beyond that suite. And walking up to a mafia boss to say, "Hey, your lieutenant is planning to murder you," seemed like a great way to get killed herself. Lena sat in the employee break room, staring at her sad sandwich, when the solution hit her. Suite 1908. He was still checked in under David Brennan. Still in the hotel. She could leave a note. It was crazy. It was dangerous. But it was something. That afternoon, during her authorized break, Lena took the service elevator to the 19th floor. Her heart hammered with every ascending number. What if he was there? What if his men were watching? The hallway was empty. Suite 1908's door was closed. Lena pulled out the small notepad she kept in her uniform pocket, used for tracking supplies, and wrote quickly. They're planning something. Someone close to you. Tomorrow night. Be careful. The girl from the wrong room. Her handwriting was shaky. The message vague. But it was all she dared. She folded the paper and slipped it under the door, her hands trembling. Then she walked away quickly, not looking back, feeling like she'd just stepped off a cliff with no idea if there was water below. In Suite 1908, Adrian stood by the window, watching the street below. He saw the shadow pass under his door. Saw the white paper slide across the dark wood. He picked it up, read it once. Then again. His jaw tightened. So the girl had heard something. And instead of running, instead of saving herself, she'd come back to warn him. Interesting. Very interesting. He pulled out his phone and dialed. Vico. We need to talk about tomorrow's meeting. Lena's lunch break came at noon the next day. She'd barely eaten since leaving that note, her stomach twisted in knots. Part of her hoped Adrian had already left Chicago. The smarter part knew he hadn't. Men like him didn't run from threats. They faced them. She bought a coffee from the cart outside the hotel, something to settle her nerves, and wandered toward the small plaza across the street. The November sun was weak but present, and a few outdoor tables were scattered outside a cafe called Brennan's. The irony wasn't lost on her. David Brennan. His fake name. She was stirring sugar into her coffee when she saw him. Adrian sat alone at a corner table, wearing dark sunglasses and a charcoal gray jacket. A newspaper lay open in front of him, but he wasn't reading it. He was waiting. For her. Lena's first instinct was to run. Her second was to walk away and pretend she'd never seen him. But her feet carried her forward, crossing the street on autopilot, her heart hammering against her ribs. He didn't look up as she approached, but she knew he tracked every step. Sit, it wasn't a request. Lena sat, gripping her coffee cup like a lifeline. Up close, in daylight, Adrian looked different. Tired. The sunglasses hid his eyes, but the tension in his jaw was visible. He'd shaved, and there was a small cut on his neck, the kind you get from a rushed morning. You left me a note, he said, still not looking at her. Yes. That was stupid. Probably. Why? Now he did look at her, removing the sunglasses. Those gray eyes pinned her in place. Why would you risk warning me? Lena swallowed hard. Because they're going to kill you. People have been trying to kill me for 15 years. What makes you think I need a maid's help? The words stung, but there was no real malice in them. Just curiosity. I overheard them yesterday. In the basement. 2 of your men talking about. She lowered her voice. About Vico. About a meeting tonight. They said you're distracted. That you've lost your edge. Adrian's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Names. Did they say names? Marco. And someone else, I didn't catch it. They said Vico's calling all the lieutenants together. That after the meeting, she couldn't finish. After the meeting, there won't be any more hesitation. Adrian completed the thought, his voice flat. I know. I've known for 3 days. Lena blinked. You knew? I suspected. Your note confirmed it. He leaned back, studying her like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. But that doesn't answer my question. Why warn me? You could have stayed silent, kept yourself safe. The real question under the question. Why do you care? Lena stared at her coffee, gathering courage. Because I saw your back. Adrian went very still. In the hotel room. When you came out of the shower. You have scars. She looked up, meeting his eyes. A lot of them. Old ones. And I thought, her voice caught. I thought, someone's already tried to kill you before. Someone got close enough to hurt you badly. And you survived. But maybe. She trailed off, unsure how to finish. Maybe what?
His voice was quieter now, softer.
Maybe you're tired of surviving alone. The words hung between them like a confession. Adrian's jaw tightened, and for a long moment, he said nothing. Around them, the cafe continued its lunch rush, clattering dishes, conversations, car horns, but their table felt suspended in silence. You don't know anything about me, he said finally. I know you didn't kill me when you could have. Twice, Lena's hands trembled slightly. I know you protected me from your own people. And I know that note I left scared you more than any threat to your life does. Why would a warning scare me? Because it means someone cares if you live or die. And you're not used to that. Adrian's expression cracked, just for a second, like ice splitting. Something vulnerable flickered across his face before the mask returned. But Lena had seen it. You should leave Chicago, he said, his voice rough. After tonight, things are going to get complicated. Dangerous. What are you going to do? What I should have done 3 years ago. Clean house, he stood, sliding the sunglasses back on. Go home, Lena. Forget you ever walked into the wrong room. Will I see you again? The question surprised them both. Adrian paused, one hand on the back of his chair, and for the first time, something almost like a smile ghosted across his lips. Not a happy smile. A sad one. If you're smart? No. And if I'm not smart? He looked at her then, really looked at her, and Lena saw the loneliness behind all that danger. The exhaustion of being a ghost. Of surviving when everyone else expected you to be dead. Then maybe, he said quietly. But I wouldn't recommend it. He pulled an envelope from his jacket and set it on the table between them. There's $5,000 in there.
Cash.
Use it to disappear for a few weeks. Stay with family. Go somewhere I'm not. I can't take your money. Yes, you can. Consider it payment for the warning. His voice hardened. And Lena? Don't come back to that hotel. Don't ask questions. Don't look for me. After tonight, Adrian Moretti stops existing again. He walked away before she could respond, disappearing into the lunchtime crowd like smoke. Lena sat alone at the table, the envelope heavy in her hands. Inside, she found crisp $100 bills and something else, a small business card with nothing but a phone number written in neat handwriting. In case of emergency. She stared at it, her heart aching with something she couldn't name. This man, this dangerous, broken man, had just given her an escape route while walking toward his own potential death. And stupidly, impossibly, she wanted to help him. Lena pocketed the card and the cash. She wouldn't leave Chicago. Not yet. Not until she knew he'd survived the night. Above the cafe, the weak November sun disappeared behind clouds, and the city seemed to hold its breath. The hotel's underground parking garage was a concrete tomb at 9 p.m. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows between the rows of luxury vehicles. Security cameras swept the space in lazy arcs, predictable, easily avoided if you knew where to stand. Adrian knew where to stand. He'd been here for 20 minutes, positioned behind a support pillar near the exit ramp, watching Vico's black Mercedes. His lieutenant had texted an hour ago. Meeting your suite at 10. Running late. Car trouble. There was no car trouble. Adrian had checked the Mercedes himself that afternoon. Engine perfect, tires inflated, not a scratch on it. Which meant Vico was lying. Again. The question was what he was really doing. Footsteps echoed across the concrete. Vico appeared from the elevator bank, phone pressed to his ear, his stocky frame moving with familiar confidence. He was alone.
For now.
Adrian's hand moved to his jacket pocket, fingers brushing the small recording device he'd activated 10 minutes ago. Old school tech, but reliable. The kind that didn't leave digital footprints. Vico stopped near the Mercedes, checking his watch. Waiting. 2 minutes later, 3 men emerged from the stairwell. Adrian recognized the first, Marco, one of the soldiers from the conversation Lena had overheard. The other 2 were younger, hungrier. Enforcers Vico had brought in from Detroit 6 months ago. Not Chicago loyalty. Vico's personal crew. Adrian's jaw tightened. You're late, Vico said, his voice carrying in the empty garage. Traffic, Marco's tone was dismissive. Everything's set. The meeting's at 10. All the lieutenants will be there, Paulie, Dominic, Sal, the whole crew. Moretti thinks it's a strategy session about the North Side territories. And after? Vico smiled, cold, calculating. After, we take a vote. I've been talking to them individually all week. Most of them agree. He's not fit to lead anymore. 3 years away made him soft. Sentimental. What about the ones who don't agree? One of the younger enforcers asked. Then they have a choice. Adapt or become examples. Vico pulled out a cigarette, lighting it. The orange glow illuminated his face. This organization needs someone who isn't afraid to make hard decisions. Someone who isn't distracted by, he laughed. By a pretty blonde maid he should have eliminated the second she saw his face. Adrian's hands curled into fists. You really think you can take him? Marco sounded uncertain. He's Adrian Moretti. The guy walked through a warehouse explosion that killed 6 men. That was 3 years ago. And you know why he survived? Because someone warned him. Someone close. Vico took a drag, exhaling slowly. He's always needed someone to watch his back. But now? He's got nobody. He came back from Argentina alone, paranoid, trusting no one. That isolation makes him vulnerable. He trusts you. Exactly. Vico's smile widened. I've been his right hand for 12 years. He thinks I held the organization together while he played dead. He has no idea I've been positioning myself to take over the second he showed weakness. The girl was the weakness, Marco said. The girl was the catalyst. But the weakness was always there. Ever since his sister died, Vico's voice hardened. He lost his edge when he lost Maria. That's when the hesitation started. That's when he stopped being the man who built this empire. The mention of Adrian's sister sent ice through his veins. Maria. Dead 5 years now. Cancer, not bullets. The one person in his life who'd been innocent. Who'd believed he could be more than what he'd become. And Vico was using her memory to justify betrayal. So, what's the play? One of the enforcers asked. Simple. We go up at 10. Present the concerns about his leadership. Give him a chance to step down peacefully. Vico flicked ash onto the concrete. When he refuses, and he will refuse because he's too proud, I'll finish what the Antonelli family started 3 years ago. You're going to kill him. In the suite. I'm going to do what needs to be done.
Quick. Clean.
Then we move forward under new leadership. Vico checked his watch again. 30 minutes. Make sure the exits are covered. If somehow things go wrong and he runs, I want him contained in the building. What about witnesses? Hotel staff. The hotel manager owes me favors. Anyone who sees too much won't remember. By morning, Vico ground out his cigarette under his heel. This ends tonight. One way or another, Adrian Moretti stops being a problem. The men dispersed, Marco toward the stairs, the enforcers back to the elevator. Vico stood alone for a moment, staring at nothing, his expression unreadable. Then he straightened his tie, smoothed his jacket, and walked toward the elevator like a man heading to a routine business meeting. Adrian waited until the garage fell silent again. His phone was already out, the recording saved and backed up to 3 separate encrypted servers. Evidence. Insurance. Proof of the betrayal that went deeper than he'd suspected. Vico hadn't just grown ambitious. He'd been planning this for months. Maybe years. The smart move would be to leave. Take the recording, leverage it, rebuild somewhere else. Let the organization tear itself apart from the inside. But Adrian was tired of running. Tired of being dead while pretending to be alive. And most of all, tired of trusting the wrong people. He pulled out his phone and sent a single text message, not to Vico, but to an old contact. Someone who owed him a favor from before the explosion. Before everything fell apart. Need cleanup crew. Grandeur Metropolitan, Suite 1908. 1 hour. Discreet. The response came within seconds. Done. Adrian looked at the elevator where Vico had disappeared. His lieutenant. His supposed right hand. The man who'd stood at his sister's funeral and promised to protect what she'd loved. The traitor isn't outside. It's next to him. Lena had been right. And now Adrian knew exactly what he had to do. He checked his weapon, a Glock 19, suppressor already attached, and started walking toward the elevator. The meeting was in 30 minutes. But Adrian Moretti had never been good at following schedules. Adrian didn't go to the meeting that night. Instead, he sent a group text at 9:45 p.m. Meeting canceled. Handle your territories as discussed. We'll reconnect next week. Then he'd called Vico directly. We need to talk. Just you and me. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. my suite. Private. Vico had agreed immediately, probably thinking Adrian suspected nothing. That the private meeting was about trust, about strategy. He had no idea he was walking into a trap. The next afternoon, Lena pushed her supply cart down the 19th floor hallway, her heart hammering. She shouldn't be here. After yesterday's warning and Adrian's money, she should have been on a bus to Iowa. But she'd worked an extra shift instead, specifically requesting floor 19, claiming she needed to make up hours. Mrs. Chun had been suspicious but allowed it. The truth was simpler and more terrifying. Lena needed to know if Adrian was alive. She'd heard nothing. No news reports about bodies in luxury hotels. No sirens last night. Either the meeting had been called off, or Adrian had handled it so quietly that no one knew. Suite 1908 loomed ahead. The door was slightly ajar, unusual for Adrian, who seemed to control every detail of his environment. Delivering fresh linens. That was her excuse if anyone asked. She had towels on her cart. She knocked softly. Come in, Adrian's voice.
Calm. Alive.
Relief flooded through her, followed immediately by fear. She should leave. Should walk away. But her hands pushed the cart forward, and she found herself positioning it near the door, within earshot. Not inside. Not quite.
Just.
Close enough. Through the gap, she could see Adrian standing by the window, wearing all black. His hands were relaxed at his sides, but there was tension in his shoulders. Waiting. The elevator dinged down the hall. Footsteps approached. Heavy. Confident. Vico appeared, dressed in an expensive suit, a leather briefcase in hand. He nodded at Lena without really seeing her, just another invisible hotel employee, and entered the suite. The door swung half-closed behind him, but didn't latch. Lena's hands trembled as she arranged towels on her cart, straining to hear. Adrian Vico's voice was warm, familiar. Thanks for making time. I know things have been tense. Sit. Adrian gestured to the leather couch. We have a lot to discuss. About last night? I was surprised when you canceled. The lieutenants were. I know what the lieutenants were expecting. Adrian's voice was colder now. I also know what you were planning. Silence. Heavy and dangerous. I don't know what you mean, Vico said carefully. Don't insult my intelligence. Adrian walked to the bar, poured 2 glasses of whiskey. His movements were deliberate, controlled. I've known you for 12 years, Vico. I know when you're lying. Boss, if someone's been talking. The parking garage. Last night. 9 p.m. Adrian set 1 glass on the coffee table in front of Vico. You met with Marco and 2 Detroit enforcers. Discussed my weakness, my hesitation, how I'm not fit to lead anymore. Vico's expression shifted, confusion to calculation to something harder. His hand moved slowly toward his briefcase. I wouldn't. Adrian's voice was soft but absolute. I have the whole conversation recorded. Your voice. Their voices. Every word about finishing what the Antonelli family started. The blood drained from Vico's face. You were there. I'm always there, Vico. That's what you forgot. Adrian took a sip of his whiskey, never taking his eyes off his lieutenant. You spent 3 years thinking I was soft. Distracted. Lost my edge. But you know what I was really doing? Vico didn't answer. Watching. Waiting. Seeing who stayed loyal and who got ambitious. Adrian set down his glass. You failed the test. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Vico's voice cracked slightly. I held this organization together while you were hiding in Argentina. I made the deals. I took the risks. And you come back expecting loyalty from the man I trusted more than anyone. Adrian's voice turned ice cold. The man who stood at my sister's funeral and swore to protect what she loved. Maria's dead because of you. Vico's composure shattered. Because you couldn't walk away from this life when she begged you to. She died knowing her brother was a monster. The single word was a knife. Don't use her to justify your betrayal. Vico's hand shot into his briefcase, yanking out a pistol. But Adrian was faster, impossibly faster. His own weapon was already drawn, aimed, steady. For a frozen heartbeat, they stared at each other. 12 years of partnership, of loyalty, of brotherhood. All of it ending in a luxury hotel suite. You don't have to do this, Vico said, his gun hand shaking. We can still. You planned to kill me in this room. Did you think I'd let you walk out? I wasn't going to. Yes, you were. You said it yourself. Quick. Clean. Then we move forward under new leadership. Adrian's finger moved to the trigger. I'm just saving us both time. Wait. The gunshot was impossibly loud in the enclosed space. A single crack that echoed off marble and glass. Vico stumbled backward, his gun clattering to the floor. His hand clutched his chest where blood bloomed across his white shirt. His eyes went wide, shock, pain, disbelief. He collapsed onto the leather couch, sliding to the floor. His mouth moved, trying to form words, but only a wet gasp came out. Outside the door, Lena gasped, a sharp intake of breath she couldn't control. Adrian's head snapped toward the sound. His gun still raised, he moved quickly to the door and yanked it fully open. Lena stood frozen, her hands still on the towel cart, her face white as snow. Their eyes locked. For 3 seconds that felt like hours, neither moved. Adrian still held the gun, smoke curling from the suppressor. Behind him, Vico's body lay motionless, blood pooling on expensive carpet. Now you've seen everything, Adrian said quietly. His voice wasn't threatening, just tired, resigned, like he'd known this moment was coming and had already accepted what it meant. Lena's voice came out as a whisper. You killed him. He was going to kill me. Adrian lowered the gun slowly, sliding it into his jacket. Last night, he planned an ambush with the whole organization. I just beat him to it. But you should go, Lena. Right now. Forget you saw this. Forget all of it. He stepped back into the suite. In 10 minutes, this room will be clean. No body. No blood. No evidence. Like it never happened. How can you just... Practice, his smile was bitter. A lot of practice. Sirens wailed somewhere in the distance, probably unrelated, but Lena flinched. Adrian heard them too. His jaw tightened. Go, he said again, more urgently. before someone else comes. But before Lena could move, Adrian's phone buzzed. He checked it, and his expression changed. Alert, dangerous. Vico's men just entered the building. 3 of them. He looked at Lena, making a decision in real time. They know something went wrong. If they find you here... The elevator dinged at the end of the hall. Adrian grabbed Lena's wrist, pulling her into the suite. You're coming with me. Now. Adrian didn't give Lena time to protest. He dragged her past Vico's body, through the suite's bedroom, to a connecting door she hadn't noticed before, service entrance, hidden behind a decorative panel. Where are we? Quiet, he pushed the panel open, revealing a narrow maintenance corridor. Pipes ran along the ceiling, bare bulbs casting weak light. Service stairs. 2 floors down, there's a private exit to the parking garage. Behind them, voices erupted in the hallway. Shouting. Vico's name being called. They'd found the body. Adrian pulled Lena into the corridor, the panel clicking shut behind them. His hand stayed locked on her wrist as they ran, her sneakers squeaking on concrete. 2 flights of stairs, moving fast, his breathing controlled, while hers came in ragged gasps. I can't breathe. You can. Keep moving, his voice was calm, practiced. Like running from armed men, was just another Tuesday. They burst through an emergency exit into the parking garage, a different section from where Adrian had watched Vico last night. A black Dodge Charger sat in the corner, engine already running. You left your car running? Lena gasped. Insurance policy. He yanked open the passenger door, practically throwing her inside. Buckle up. The driver's door slammed. Adrian threw the car into gear and peeled out, tires screaming on concrete. Behind them, the stairwell door crashed open. 3 men, the same Detroit enforcers from last night, raised weapons. Gunshots cracked through the garage. Lena screamed, ducking instinctively. The rear window exploded, safety glass sprang across the back seat. Adrian jerked the wheel hard, the Charger fishtailing toward the exit ramp. Stay down. More shots. 1 pinged off the trunk. Another shattered the side mirror. They rocketed up the ramp into late afternoon sunlight, the Charger's engine roaring. Adrian cut across 2 lanes of Michigan Avenue traffic, horns blaring, and took a hard right into the maze of downtown streets. Lena risked a glance back. 2 black SUVs were pushing through traffic behind them, moving fast. They're following us. I know. Adrian's hands were steady on the wheel, his eyes constantly moving. Mirrors, street, mirrors. Vico had backup plans. Always did. You killed him, the words burst out, shock finally catching up with adrenaline. Yes. Just shot him. Like it was nothing. Adrian swerved around a delivery truck, cutting through a yellow light. He was going to kill me, Lena. Last night. With Marco and 5 other lieutenants. It was him or me. But you could have, arrested him? Exile? Something other than. There's no arrest in my world. No exile that sticks. Only permanent solutions. His voice was flat, matter of fact. You want to judge me for it? Fine. Judge me after we survive the next 10 minutes. The SUVs were gaining. 1 pulled alongside them, passenger window rolling down. Lena saw the gun before Adrian did. Get down. He yanked the wheel left, slamming the Charger into the SUV's side. Metal shrieked. The SUV swerved, clipping a parked car. But the second vehicle was right behind them, relentless. Adrian floored it, the speedometer climbing 50, 60, 70 in a 35 zone. They blew through an intersection, nearly hitting a taxi. Pedestrians scattered. You're going to kill someone? Lena shouted. Better them than us. He took a sharp right into the old district. Narrow streets, brick buildings, fewer cameras. The Charger barely fit, side mirrors scraping parked cars. Behind them, the SUVs struggled with the tight space. Good. That was the plan. Then the rear windshield exploded completely. Lena screamed again as bullets tore through the interior. 1 punched through the headrest inches from Adrian's skull. He cursed, jerking the wheel. The Charger sideswiped a dumpster, sparks flying. The engine started smoking. Come on, not now. Adrian's calm finally cracked. He pounded the dashboard as the temperature gauge spiked into red. Come on. The engine coughed.
Once. Twice.
Then died. The Charger coasted to a stop in a narrow alley between two abandoned warehouses. Steam hissed from under the hood. Behind them, the SUV's engines grew louder.
Out.
Now, Adrian was already moving, grabbing a duffel bag from the back seat, weapons probably, and yanking Lena's door open. We run. Run where? Away from the guns. They sprinted down the alley as the first SUV screeched to a stop behind the dead Charger. Shouts echoed off brick walls. More gunshots, louder, closer. Adrian pulled Lena left, through a gap between buildings barely wide enough for them. Her jacket caught on something sharp and tore. She stumbled, and Adrian's hand caught her elbow, keeping her upright. Don't stop. Don't look back. They emerged onto a side street, older Chicago, industrial area, where houses mixed with dying businesses. Twilight was falling, shadows lengthening. Adrian scanned the street, calculating. There, he pointed to a fire escape. Up. I can't climb. Yes, you can. He laced his fingers together, making a stirrup. Foot.
Now.
Lena stepped into his hands. He lifted her like she weighed nothing, and she grabbed the ladder's lowest rung, pulling herself up. Her arms screamed. Below, Adrian jumped, caught the ladder, and hauled himself up with frightening ease. They climbed 3 floors to the warehouse roof. Lena's lungs burned, her legs shaking. Adrian moved past her, scanning the roofline, looking for exits, for options. Behind them, voices shouted in the alley.
Searching.
Hunting. How many people want you dead? Lena gasped, collapsing against a ventilation unit. Adrian checked his phone. Cracked screen, but functional. Today? Maybe 20. Tomorrow? He looked at her, something almost like dark humor in his eyes. Probably more. This is insane. This is my life. He pulled the gun from his jacket, checking the magazine. And now, because you were in the wrong place at the wrong time twice, it's yours too. Below, flashlight beams swept through the alley. Adrian grabbed Lena's hand.
Come on.
We need to move before they think to check the roofs. They ran across the tar paper surface as night fell over Chicago, 2 fugitives racing against the darkness. They drove through the night in a stolen Honda. Adrian's work, hot-wired in 40 seconds flat while Lena kept watch. The warehouse district faded behind them, then the city lights, then Illinois itself. Adrian drove in silence, one hand on the wheel, the other pressed against his left arm where blood had soaked through his jacket. You're bleeding, Lena said for the 3rd time. I know. You need a hospital. No hospitals. They report gunshot wounds. His voice was tight with pain. I'll handle it when we stop. When do we stop? When we're far enough. Far enough turned out to be 6 hours and 3 states away. By the time Adrian pulled into the gravel driveway of a small coastal villa in southern Michigan, dawn was breaking over Lake Michigan. Pink and gold light reflected off the water, and the air smelled like pine and cold, clean water. The house was modest, white clapboard, blue shutters, a wraparound porch with weathered furniture. Nothing like the luxury hotel. Nothing like what Lena expected from a man who lived in penthouses and drove sports cars. Where are we? She asked as Adrian killed the engine. Somewhere safe. He opened his door, wincing as he moved. My sister's place. Was her place. Past tense. Lena remembered the conversation in the parking garage. Ever since his sister died. Adrian pulled a key from under a ceramic frog by the front door, such a normal, domestic hiding spot that it made Lena's chest ache. Inside, the house was frozen in time. Furniture covered with white sheets. Photos on the mantel showing a younger Adrian with a dark-haired woman who had his eyes but a softer smile. Maria, Adrian said quietly, seeing Lena's gaze. She bought this place 10 years ago. Wanted somewhere away from Chicago. From the family business, he pulled off his jacket, and Lena saw the blood-soaked shirt underneath. She never got to retire here. How did she?
Cancer.
5 years ago, he moved toward the kitchen, stumbling slightly. Pancreatic.
6 months from diagnosis to
the end. Lena caught his elbow.
seat. Please.
Before you pass out. He didn't argue, sinking into a kitchen chair. Up close in the morning light, he looked exhausted. Gray eyes shadowed, jaw tight with pain, blood still seeping from his arm. First aid kit.
Lena asked.
Bathroom. Under the sink. She found it quickly, a surprisingly well-stocked kit that included bandages, antiseptic, and even sutures. Of course Maria would be prepared. She seemed like that kind of person from the photos. Back in the kitchen, Lena helped Adrian peel off his ruined shirt. The bullet had grazed his upper arm. Deep, but clean.
No fragments. Lucky.
You've done this before, Adrian said as she cleaned the wound with steady hands. My dad was a construction worker. Accidents happened. She didn't mention that her dad had also been an alcoholic who got hurt more often than he should have. Some stories didn't need telling. This needs stitches. Then stitch it. I'm not a doctor. Lena, he caught her hand. Those gray eyes intense.
Please.
I've had worse.
Just.
Close it. Her hands shook as she threaded the needle, but muscle memory took over. Small, even stitches, the way her mother had taught her when fixing torn clothes. Except this was skin, warm and alive under her fingers. Adrian didn't flinch, didn't make a sound, just watched her face as she worked, something unreadable in his expression. Why didn't you just run alone? The question came out before Lena could stop it. Last night. You could have left me at the hotel. You'd be faster without me. Probably. So why? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Lena finished the last stitch, tied it off, and started wrapping gauze around his arm. She thought he wouldn't answer. Then, because for the first time in 3 years, I don't want to. Lena's hand stilled. What? Run alone, he said it like a confession. I've been running since the explosion. New cities, new names, new faces. Always alone because everyone I trusted either died or betrayed me. And then you, he shook his head. You walked into the wrong room and saw me.
Really saw me.
Not Adrian Moretti the ghost. Not the monster.
Just.
A man. A man with a gun, Lena said softly. A man with a gun who is still human enough to scare you. Adrian's voice dropped. You looked at my scars like they hurt you. You warned me when you could have stayed silent. You cared if I lived or died. And he swallowed hard. I forgot what that felt like. Lena finished tying the bandage, her throat tight. I'm nobody. Just a maid who. You're somebody who saw me broken and didn't run. Adrian caught her wrist gently, his thumb brushing over her pulse point. You gave me something I didn't know I needed. What's that? A reason to try again. The words hung between them in the quiet kitchen, morning light streaming through salt-stained windows. Outside, waves lapped at the shore. Inside, 2 broken people looked at each other and saw mirrors of themselves. Lena saw loneliness, survival, the weight of choices that couldn't be undone. Adrian saw courage, compassion, someone who'd been knocked down by life, but kept getting up. I don't know how to do this, Lena whispered. I don't know what we're doing. Neither do I. Adrian's hand slipped from her wrist to her fingers, holding loosely, like she might pull away, like he'd let her if she wanted. But for the first time in years, I want to figure it out. Lena should pull away, should run, should do 1,000 sensible things. Instead, she squeezed his hand back. Okay, she said. We'll figure out together. Adrian's shoulders sagged with something that looked like relief. Outside, the sun climbed higher over Lake Michigan, and inside Maria's house, 2 fugitives allowed themselves to hope. Just for a moment. Just enough to breathe. The day unfolded like something from a different life. Adrian slept until noon, the first real sleep he'd had in days, according to the dark circles that had finally started to fade. Lena found herself wandering Maria's house, touching things gently. Books about gardening. A half-finished crossword puzzle from 5 years ago. A coffee mug with "World's Best Sister" painted on it. Evidence of a life interrupted. When Adrian finally emerged, showered and wearing clean clothes from a closet that still held his sister's late husband's things, he looked almost normal. Almost like a regular man instead of a fugitive mob boss. "There's a cafe down the beach," he said, catching her staring at family photos. Maria loved their coffee. "We could," he stopped, seeming uncertain. "If you want." Lena realized with a start that Adrian was asking her on something that resembled a date. In the middle of running for their lives. "I'd like that," she said. The beachfront cafe was exactly what Maria would have loved, weathered with tables, mismatched chairs, windows overlooking the lake. Only 3 other customers occupied the space, an elderly couple sharing a newspaper and a teenager with headphones. Adrian ordered 2 coffees and blueberry pancakes without looking at the menu. "Maria's usual," he explained quietly. "I used to visit her here, before she got too sick." They sat outside despite the November chill, wrapped in borrowed jackets from the house. The lake stretched endlessly, gray-blue and peaceful. For an hour, they talked about nothing important. Lena's childhood in Iowa. Adrian's memories of Maria dragging him to farmers markets. The difference between Chicago deep dish and real pizza, a debate that made them both laugh. It felt surreal. Normal. Like they were just 2 people getting to know each other, not 2 fugitives hiding from an organization that wanted them dead. "I need to teach you something," Adrian said eventually, his expression growing serious. "Before things get complicated again. More complicated than fleeing armed men." "Much more," he stood, leaving money on the table. "Come on." He led her down the beach to a secluded rocky area where the sound of waves would mask noise. From his jacket, he pulled the Glock he'd used to kill Vico. Lena stepped back instinctively. "I'm not going to hurt you," Adrian said. "But if something happens, if we get separated, you need to be able to protect yourself. I can't shoot someone. You can if it's them or you." He flipped the weapon, offering her the grip. 5 minutes. Just basics. How to hold it. How to aim. How to squeeze the trigger without flinching. Lena's hands trembled as she took the gun. It was heavier than she expected. Cold. "Both hands," Adrian said, moving behind her. His arms came around her, adjusting her grip, his voice low in her ear. Firm but not tense. "The gun's a tool, not a monster. Respect it, don't fear it." His chest was warm against her back. She could feel his heart beating, steady, controlled. Professional. But there was something else underneath. An awareness. A tension that had nothing to do with weapons. "Sight alignment," he continued, pointing down the beach at a piece of driftwood. "Line up the front and rear sights.
Breathe.
On the exhale, squeeze, don't pull, the trigger." Lena squeezed. The gun kicked hard, the sound sharp even with the suppressor. The driftwood didn't move. She'd missed by 3 feet. Again. Don't anticipate the recoil. She tried 5 more times. Missed 4. On the 6th attempt, the driftwood splintered. "Good," Adrian said, his voice carrying something that might have been pride. "You're a natural." "I'm really not." "You didn't freeze." "That's what matters." He took the gun back, sliding it into his jacket. "In my world, hesitation kills faster than bad aim." They walked back along the shore, the afternoon sun breaking through clouds. Adrian picked up a smooth stone and skipped it across the water, 3 bounces before it sank. "I used to do this with Maria," he said. "She was terrible at it. Could never get more than 1 skip." "What was she like?" Adrian's expression softened. "Everything I wasn't."
Kind.
"Patient. Saw the good in people even when there wasn't any to see." He found another stone. "She knew what I did, what I was. But she never gave up on me. Kept saying I could walk away, start over, be someone else." "Why didn't you?" "Because I didn't know how to be anyone else. This life." He gestured vaguely. "It's all I've ever known." My father ran the organization before me. His father before him. Legacy, they called it. Prison sentence, Maria called it. She was smart. Yeah, Adrian's voice was rough. She was. They stood in comfortable silence, watching waves roll in. For a moment, just a fleeting, fragile moment, Lena let herself imagine a different life. One where Adrian wasn't a mob boss. Where she wasn't running. Where they were just two people who'd met under normal circumstances and decided to see where it went. Then Adrian's phone buzzed. He checked it, and his entire body went rigid.
No.
What? We need to get back to the house.
Now.
They ran up the beach, sand flying. Adrian burst through the cafe door, startling the elderly couple. The TV mounted in the corner showed the afternoon news. A reporter stood outside the Grandeur Metropolitan Hotel. Behind her, crime scene tape, police cars, and a photo of Adrian, old but unmistakable, filling the screen. Sources confirmed that Adrian Moretti, presumed dead for 3 years, was involved in yesterday's shooting at the luxury hotel. Police are searching for Moretti and a female accomplice. Lena's driver's license photo appeared on screen. Her name, her address. Lena Carter, 24, believed to be traveling with Moretti. Both are considered armed and dangerous. Adrian grabbed the remote from the counter and threw it against the wall. It shattered, batteries skittering across the floor. The cafe fell silent. The elderly couple stared. The teenager pulled out their phone. "We need to leave," Adrian said, his voice deadly calm. "They found us. But how?" "Security cameras. Witnesses." "Doesn't matter," he grabbed her hand. "They know you're with me now. Which means you're as wanted as I am." Outside, in the distance, sirens began to wail. They threw everything they could carry into Maria's old Toyota, a rusted sedan that had been sitting in the garage under a tarp. Adrian hot-wired it in seconds while Lena grabbed cash, the duffel bag of weapons, and 2 bottles of water from the kitchen. The sirens were getting closer. "Where are we going?" Lena asked as they peeled out of the driveway, gravel spraying. "The docks. 20 miles south. I have a contact, cargo ship heading to Canada. If we can get there before." Blue lights flashed in the rearview mirror. "Before that," Adrian finished grimly. He floored the accelerator. The coastal road twisted along Lake Michigan, narrow and winding, with steep drops to rocky beaches below. Beautiful in daylight, treacherous at night. The sun had set an hour ago, and fog was rolling in from the water. Adrian drove like he was racing because he was racing against the police, against time, against the organization that wanted them both dead. "They're gaining," Lena said, watching the police cruiser's lights grow brighter. "I know," Adrian's jaw was tight, hands white-knuckled on the wheel. "Hold on." He took a curve at 60, the Toyota's tires screaming. Lena braced against the door. Behind them, the cruiser matched their speed, closing the distance. Then headlights appeared ahead. Not police lights. Something darker. 2 black SUVs, coming from the opposite direction. "No, Adrian, breathe."
No, no, no.
The SUVs didn't slow. They positioned themselves across both lanes, blocking the road. Adrian slammed the brakes, the Toyota fishtailing dangerously close to the cliff edge. "Vico's people," he said, already reaching for his weapon. "They found us first." The police cruiser stopped 50 yards behind them, effectively boxing them in. But instead of approaching, the cruiser's lights went dark. Its engine cut off. "They're not cops," Lena whispered, horrified understanding dawning.
No.
"They're paid to look like cops." Adrian checked his gun, full magazine. "Vico's backup plan. He bought them weeks ago." The SUV doors opened. 6 men emerged, all armed, silhouettes in the fog and darkness. Professional, military precise in their movements. Marco stepped forward from the group, a shotgun resting on his shoulder. "Should have stayed dead, boss," he called out. "Vico warned us you'd try to run." Adrian rolled down his window slightly. "Vico's dead, Marco. It's over. It's over when you're dead." That's what Vico paid us for. Marco pumped the shotgun. Him first, then the girl. Those were the orders. Adrian's hand found Lena's in the darkness. When I say run, you run for the tree line. 30 yards east. Don't look back. I'm not leaving you. Yes, you are. He pressed the Glock into her hand, the same one he'd taught her to shoot hours ago. Stay low. Stay alive. Adrian. He kissed her.
Quick.
Desperate. Like it might be the last time. Then he threw open his door and started shooting. The world exploded into violence. Adrian dove behind the Toyota's hood as bullets shredded the driver's side door. Glass shattered. Metal pinged. He returned fire with deadly accuracy, one man down, then another. Lena's training kicked in before her fear could. She rolled out the passenger side, hitting the ground hard, the Glock clutched in both hands. 30 yards to the trees. She could make it. But Adrian was pinned down, outnumbered 4-1 now. Don't hesitate. Hesitation kills. Lena rose to a crouch, aimed at the nearest man, one of the fake cops circling behind Adrian. She squeezed the trigger. The gun kicked. The man staggered, grabbing his leg, falling. Holy God, she'd actually hit him. Lena, run, Adrian shouted. But she wouldn't. She fired again, forcing another man to dive for cover. It bought Adrian 3 seconds, enough to eliminate another attacker. Then pain exploded across her upper arm. Hot. Sharp. Like someone had dragged a razor blade from shoulder to elbow. She'd been shot. Lena gasped, stumbling backward. Blood soaked her sleeve, dark and wet. But the gun was still in her hand and she was still standing. Marco was reloading his shotgun, cursing. The girl's got teeth. Take her down. Adrian moved like a ghost through the fog. He'd flanked left while they focused on Lena, coming up behind Marco's position. 2 shots, precise, controlled, and Marco crumpled. But the remaining enforcer got lucky. His bullet caught Adrian in the shoulder, spinning him around. No! Lena screamed. Adrian stayed on his feet through sheer will, his left arm hanging useless, blood spreading across his shirt. He fired one-handed at the last man once, twice, until the enforcer dropped. Silence fell, broken only by Lena's ragged breathing and the distant sound of waves. Adrian leaned against the bullet-riddled Toyota, his face pale in the moonlight. Blood dripped from his shoulder, matching the blood on Lena's arm. You're bleeding, Lena said, stumbling toward him. So are you. His voice was strained, pain etched in every word. You're bleeding again, she corrected, her hands shaking as she reached him. We need to. You keep saying that like I don't notice. Adrian tried to smile, but it came out as a grimace. He looked at the bodies scattered across the coastal road. Can you drive? My arm. Can you drive? Yes. Then we need to move. Real cops will be here soon. The ones who aren't on anyone's payroll. He pushed off the Toyota, swaying slightly. Help me to the passenger side. Lena wrapped her good arm around his waist, supporting his weight. They stumbled around the riddled vehicle. Somehow, miraculously, the engine still turned over when she tried the ignition. The docks, Adrian said through gritted teeth. 3 miles. Stay on this road. Lena drove with one arm, her wounded arm resting uselessly in her lap. Blood dripped onto the seat. Adrian pressed his jacket against his shoulder, trying to slow the bleeding. Neither spoke. Words felt too small for what had just happened. They'd killed people. Together. They'd saved each other. Together. And now they were bleeding together, racing toward an uncertain escape while the fog swallowed the road behind them. Behind them, red and blue lights finally appeared. Real police this time, too late to witness what had occurred. Ahead, the docks waited in darkness, their last chance at freedom. The abandoned dock materialized from the fog like something from a ghost story. Rotting wood pilings, rusted chains, a single flickering light that barely penetrated the pre-dawn darkness. Lena killed the engine, and the silence felt heavy. Final. We made it, she breathed. Adrian didn't answer. His face was gray, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cold. The bleeding had slowed but not stopped. Lena's arm throbbed with every heartbeat, but she knew his wound was worse. "Stay here," he said, opening his door with difficulty. "My contact should be." A figure emerged from the shadows, an older man with a weathered face and a sailor's steady gait. He looked at Adrian, at the blood, and nodded once. "Moretti, you look like hell." "I've had better nights, Marcus." Adrian gestured toward the water. "The ship?" "Leaves in 40 minutes. Canadian registry, heading to Halifax. They'll get you across the border. No questions." Marcus's eyes shifted to Lena. "Didn't know you had company." "Neither did I." Adrian's voice was softer. "Can you take two?" Marcus hesitated. "Passage for two costs double. And she's all over the news. Hot cargo." "I'll pay triple." Adrian pulled out a money clip, somehow still intact despite the firefight, and peeled off bills. "Get her on that ship. Whatever it takes." "Adrian, what are you?" Lena started. "Wait in the car." His tone left no room for argument. She waited, watching through the cracked windshield as the two men talked. Marcus counted money. Adrian handed him something else, looked like a passport. Marcus shook his head. Adrian insisted, pressing more bills into his hand. Finally, Marcus nodded and disappeared into the fog. Adrian returned to the car, moving slowly. He opened Lena's door, his good hand extended. "Come on. Let's clean you up before you go." "Before I go where?" "Somewhere safe. Somewhere that isn't with me." Inside the dock's small warehouse, Adrian found a first aid kit, dusty but serviceable. They sat on stacked crates while he cleaned the graze on Lena's arm. The bullet had carved a shallow channel through her bicep. Painful but not life-threatening. "You got lucky," he said, wrapping gauze around her arm with practiced efficiency. 2 inches to the right, and you'd have a shattered bone. "What about you?" Lena gestured to his shoulder. "I'll manage." He tied off the bandage, then reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick envelope. Inside, she saw cash, a lot of it, and a burgundy passport. "Canadian passport. Your photo, new name, Elizabeth Morrison. Birth certificate, social security number, full background. One of the best forgers in North America made it." He pressed it into her hands. "There's $30,000. Enough to start over. New city. New life. Whatever you want." Lena stared at the passport, her photo looking back at her under a stranger's name. "I don't understand." "The ship goes to Halifax. From there, you can go anywhere."
Vancouver.
"Montreal. Disappear into Canada where my organization has no reach." Adrian's voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed him. "You have a chance at life, Lena. A real one. Take it." "What about you?" "I'll figure something out." "I always do." "You're still running." The accusation hung between them. "Yes," he didn't deny it. "Because that's what I do. What I've always done. Run, hide, survive. And everyone who stays with me," his voice cracked. "Everyone gets hurt. Or worse. I'm already hurt. I'm already wanted by the police. What difference does it make?" "The difference is you didn't choose this life." "I did." Adrian stood, wincing at the movement. "You're 24 years old. You should be worried about college loans and bad dates, not dodging bullets and wondering if today's the day you die. And you should be worried about the same things. I'm 36 and I've been in this world since I was 18. There's no getting out for me. But you," he cupped her face gently with his good hand. "You walked into the wrong room. That's all.
A mistake.
And you shouldn't have to pay for it with your life." Tears burned Lena's eyes. "What if I don't want to leave?" "Then you're braver and more foolish than I thought." His thumb brushed away a tear. "I'm not a good man, Lena. I've killed people, destroyed families, built an empire on blood and fear. Maria spent years trying to save me, and it killed her to realize she couldn't. She didn't fail. You're here. You're trying. I'm running. That's not the same thing." Adrian's voice dropped to a whisper. "I'm not sure I know how to stop." Outside, a ship's horn sounded.
Low.
Mournful. Final. "That's your ship?" Adrian said. Marcus will take you aboard. Say you're his niece. Nobody will question it. And you? I'll find another way. I always do. He kissed her forehead, gentle, lingering.
Go.
Please. Before I change my mind and do something selfish like asking you to stay. Lena took the envelope, the passport, the money. Evidence of a future she could have. Should have. A life without danger, without constantly looking over her shoulder. But as she walked toward the dock where Marcus waited, each step felt wrong. Heavy. She turned back once. Adrian stood in the warehouse doorway, backlit by the single bulb, his silhouette strong despite the injuries. He raised his good hand in farewell. Thank you, Lena called out. For protecting me. For giving me a choice. Thank you, he replied, for seeing me as human. The fog rolled in thicker, and when Lena looked again, Adrian was gone. Vanished like he'd never been there at all. Just a ghost of Chicago, disappearing into the dawn. Marcus helped her aboard the cargo ship. The engine rumbled to life. As the dock receded into the morning mist, Lena clutched the passport and wondered if she'd made the right choice. Or if leaving him was the biggest mistake of her life. 6 weeks later, Elizabeth Morrison stood behind the front desk of the Tides Inn, a modest seaside hotel in Port Elgin, Nova Scotia. The name felt strange on her tongue, but she was getting used to it. Elizabeth.
Beth.
A quiet woman with no past, who'd arrived with cash and a sob story about escaping an abusive relationship. Nobody questioned it. People came to small coastal towns to disappear all the time. The work was familiar, checking guests in, managing reservations, keeping the lobby pristine. But this time, there were no luxury penthouses. No dangerous men with guns. Just fishermen and retirees and the occasional tourist who'd gotten lost on their way to Halifax. Normal. Safe. Exactly what Adrian had wanted for her.
So, why did it feel so empty?
Lena, Elizabeth, try not to think about him. About gray eyes and dangerous smiles. About the way he'd looked at her in Maria's kitchen like she was something precious. About the warmth of his hand in hers as bullets flew around them.
Tried. Failed.
Repeated daily. The news had gone quiet after 2 weeks. Adrian Moretti, still at large, became police scale-back search, became nothing at all. Like he'd vanished into smoke. Part of her hoped he'd made it somewhere safe. Another part knew that men like Adrian didn't get happy endings. They just got different kinds of running. Excuse me, miss. Elizabeth looked up to find Mrs. Chun, a different Mrs. Chun, this one a guest who'd been staying for a week, holding out a room key. Checking out already? I thought you had 3 more days. My daughter's having the baby early. I need to get to Toronto, Mrs. Chun smiled warmly. Thank you for the lovely stay. After she left, Elizabeth began her evening rounds. The Tides Inn was small enough that she handled multiple roles: front desk, housekeeping coordination, lost and found management. She'd just finished inventorying the supply closet when she passed the lost and found cubby behind the desk. A small package sat there, wrapped in brown paper. Elizabeth frowned. She'd checked the lost and found that morning. Nothing had been there. But now this package sat alone, her new name written across it in neat handwriting. Elizabeth Morrison. Her hands trembled as she picked it up.
Light.
The size of a jewelry box. No return address. She unwrapped it carefully in the back office, away from curious eyes. Inside was a small velvet box. Inside that, a silver charm, delicate and beautiful, shaped like an angel's wing. The metalwork was intricate, each feather detailed. It caught the light, gleaming. And underneath, a note on cream cardstock. You saw me broken. You didn't run. You gave me a reason to try again. A.M. Elizabeth's breath caught. Her vision blurred with tears she'd been holding back for 6 weeks. He was alive. He'd found her. She turned the charm over in her palm, and on the back, she found a tiny engraving. Matthew 11 verse 28. Elizabeth didn't know the Bible well, but she looked it up on her phone with shaking hands. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest.
Rest. Peace.
The thing neither of them had ever really known. Was he saying goodbye? Or was he saying something else? Elizabeth read the note again, searching for hidden meaning. Try again. Not tried again, present tense. Ongoing. He was still trying. Still fighting. Still alive somewhere, carrying the weight of his choices, but maybe, just maybe, believing he could be more than what he'd been. And he wanted her to know. She pinned the angel wing to her uniform, right above her name tag. The silver caught the evening light streaming through the office window. A small, secret piece of a life she'd left behind. A reminder that she'd been brave once. That she'd faced darkness and survived. That she'd mattered to someone who didn't let people matter. Elizabeth returned to the front desk as the sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and pink. The ocean stretched endlessly beyond the hotel's windows, waves rolling in eternal rhythm. Somewhere out there, Adrian was still running, still surviving, still trying to be the man his sister had believed he could be. And somewhere inside Elizabeth Morrison, inside Lena Carter, a small flame of hope burned. Maybe he'd find peace. Maybe he'd find redemption. Maybe one day, when the running finally stopped, when the danger faded and the ghosts were laid to rest, their paths would cross again. Or maybe this was all they'd ever have. A note. A charm. Proof that for one brief, violent, beautiful moment, two broken people had found each other in the darkness and held on. Either way, she would carry this with her. This reminder that she'd been seen. Truly seen. And that she'd given someone a reason to hope. Elizabeth touched the angel wing on her uniform and gazed toward the horizon where sea met sky. Stay safe, she whispered to the sunset. Wherever you are. The ocean gave no answer. But the charm caught the light, gleaming silver and bright, a small piece of grace in an unforgiving world. And for now, that was enough.